Hey everybody, I'm John. This is Strategic Investing, and today I had the pleasure of speaking with Xtract One CEO Peter Evans on their recent capital raise and what's going on with Xtract One, the business, the stock, everything right now. So I hope you guys enjoy the interview. Just a quick heads up, Peter was having a little bit of video issues. He was taking some time out of his busy day, and the Wi-Fi wasn't quite right. So we did kind of just get the audio for this interview, but either way, definitely some good information here, and I hope you guys find the interview valuable. All right, Mr. Peter Evans, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing very well, John. I'm on the road here today. You'll notice a different background, which we can have all of the investors play Where's Waldo, okay?
Yeah, it might be a little hard, but we can have them try. I think we'll just jump right in here with the offering. Obviously, you guys did a bought deal recently. You guys raised about 11.5 million with the full over allotment exercised. Can you just kind of walk us through how that came together, what the money's going to be used for, everything around that?
Yeah, it came together very, very fast. We weren't out looking for money, but we've got a number of investment bankers who track us very closely. They're under NDA. They see what's, excuse me, John. They see what's happening with the business, and they're recognizing sort of the market uptake for the One Gateway. And they're starting to put their models together. They can see where we're going, what we're doing. And someone knocked on the door and said, look, I've got some people who are very, very interested in putting money in the company. We know that you're going to have to double the manufacturing capacity, potentially even double it again to meet the demand that we see coming. And again, other things that they're aware of. And they put what I thought were very favorable terms on the table that will allow us to accelerate. And it's a nice thing when you don't need money, that when somebody puts the money on the table, they give you some very, very favorable terms. And so we were quite pleased with that. There's an old saying, take the money even when you don't need it, because sometimes when you actually do need it, it's very difficult to come by. And so we were very cautious because I want to protect shareholder value. And so, we actually had a lot more money put on the table, and we sort of capped it and said, look, that's enough. And it's a small amount of dilution, but when I do the back of the envelope math on what this is going to allow us to do in terms of doubling the capacity, for example, of the One Gateways, and what that means in terms of revenue, what that means in terms of, acceleration. Ultimately, we think it's going to deliver a lot more shareholder value than a small amount of dilution. Now, what are we going to use the money for? Top of mind is increasing manufacturing capacity for the One Gateway. There's some long lead time parts for that product. There's some unique parts that are built into it. If you look at the plastic shells, those are very, very unique. There's not a lot of people who are doing 6-foot plastic shells like that. And that takes some capacity and that takes some capital to be able to build that. Further, we'll probably continue to invest in more R&D for innovation. We're seen as the innovation leader. I had a great story the other day, a great anecdote where we did a demo with one customer when they asked us about detecting one item. And we gathered data on site, something the systems are very well attuned to do right now. 2 hours later, we had our AI team send a new update to the software. It was on site, and the customer was blown away that we could actually turn around that kind of innovation that fast. And so that takes money to make sure we've got the engineering capacity to do those sorts of things. Obviously, I want to continue to invest in sales. We have a thin, but very, A-plus sales team. We need more to be able to get out in front of more people. We've got the unprecedented amount of demand, unprecedented amount of leads that are knocking on our door, and we just don't have the capacity to deal with this. We need to, like a big sponge, absorb the demand that's going to pour at us as quickly as we can. So those are the primary areas of investment.
Okay. So, a lot of the kind of negative takes on it may have been, or from what I've seen in investor conversations that I've had, is like, if you don't need the money, why take it? But you're not necessarily saying, you're saying you don't need the money to keep the business running, but the money is useful to accelerate the growth. That's what you're saying.
Exactly. Earlier days when we were still doing a couple $100,000 of business, maybe a couple $1 million of business, we need the money to fund operations.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Otherwise, you run out of cash. That's not the same situation. We've talked about the path to cash flow break even, and we're on that path. And, I think we could have done that very easily with the last raise. But the ability to, I know you want, and I want to talk about Martin's Law. The UK is doing extremely well for us, much faster than I thought it would, and the adoption rate around Martin's Law is growing quite significantly. That takes investment, and you can kind of do this in a trickle out manner, or you can do things. What we have been doing is testing the market, getting out there, doing trials. I've been in the UK quite a bit myself to really assess, is this worth the investment? Are we going to get the quick ROI return around it? Now that we validated that in the market and that people are aggressively looking for solutions, it's a good time to say, okay, we need a dedicated sales team now. We need to put out support in that kind of country. And the cash gives us the option to do that, the influx of cash. It doesn't mean we're suddenly going to go spend it. I hope anything the investors realize is we've been very, very judicious how we've used our money and how we spent it. And we really try and stretch a dollar. But we test and test and test first before just going out and saying, I got to do $2 million on a sponsorship for some sports team like some of our competitors do. Okay. And so
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Money as if it was our own.
Right? Yeah, no, and I think it's good. I think it's good that I think it's reassuring that you guys had the opportunity to take in more, but you made the decision not to. I think that's really nice to hear. If you could maybe get into a little bit more though, with Martin's Law, kind of. I know venues still have a little while before they necessarily have to comply, but it sounds like you guys are seeing some early movement. And then maybe if you could as well, similar kind of question around healthcare and hospitals in California, because we also have a similar law kind of going into effect there.
Yeah. So I think a couple of things around Martin's Law. It's interesting that we're starting to see other countries around the world adopt the law. It's been well written. It's got teeth to it, that it has penalties for people who don't follow it. And it's been written very completely, not only just saying, screen for weapons, which of course our investors want us to do, but also looking at things like the whole end-to-end processes, training, and everything that is, required to make sure a venue is safe. So do I think that you're going to see, units flying off the shelf for people buying systems? No, they need to think about a solution. And that solution includes hiring staff, guarding, training, deployment capabilities. How do I go retest the systems and retest the process every year? And so, but people are starting to get ahead of the curve now. And we're seeing, like any market, you've got the early adopters, and they're the ones who are, inbounding to us, or partners are bringing to us. I think everyone saw the post it on LinkedIn, for example, for the work at the South Bank Center. And we're seeing, I want to say the last 6 months, dozens and dozens of those opportunities, appearing. And so it's got real teeth to it. And I think it's going to be a real growth engine for us in the next 12 to 16 months.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, in terms of California, you also asked about California. Yeah, the law is in place that by 2027, hospitals need to secure their ER or emergency rooms. They need to secure the main entrance, and they need to secure the labor and delivery entrance if it's not one or the other. And so we have seen, and we're actually aggressively pursuing hospitals in California right now. We've done, I want to say in the range of 2 or 3 dozen trials, and we have had some wins with certain customers already. So we're very pleased. The same thing is happening in other states. There's 2 other states that are putting in place similar laws. And we expect this to be the norm across all healthcare organizations. We're starting to see some schools starting to work through the legislation around mandating security in schools instead of just school boards proactively doing interesting things. My thesis here, John, is that in 3 to 5 years, people will have done the risk trade-off and the cost trade-off, just like they did for smoke detectors, just like they did for water sprinkler systems, just like they do for badge access control systems, where the risk versus cost trade-off to saving lives is going to make this de facto. And you'll see walk-through metal detectors or solutions like ours or AI systems on cameras, part of a more holistic approach to protecting against weapons in every building. I sat with one governor of one state about 3 months ago, and he asked me bluntly the question, why isn't this legislated now, just like smoke detectors are?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that as a possibility, especially with healthcare. With everything that goes on there, it seems like, like you've said, one of the highest or the highest workplace violence areas. So definitely definitely
Well,
foreseeable there.
interesting statistic for you.
Yeah.
Manitoba Healthcare, who we've announced is one of our customers, they started off with just two systems in two emergency rooms, and they continue to expand, into more and more locations in a progressive and pragmatic rollout. And in the time since we deployed in, I think it was like March, April timeframe, it's escaping me right now. Um, there's just those two entrances. They stopped 1,600 weapons coming in the door.
Wow.
Oh, that's something that creates one of those oh crap moments for other healthcare organizations who are looking for the validation that this is something they need to take seriously.
Sure, definitely. Um, Jumping into One Gateway specifically a little bit, obviously everybody's excited about that right now. When we look at seasonality here, though, obviously with schools being a major customer, are you guys seeing that maybe schools tend to want to buy and install specifically in the breaks that they have, like summer break and winter break, maybe? Or is this kind of something that really doesn't follow those trends?
It really, I think, depends on how many systems a particular school district is deploying. So we're like Volusia, which has numerous high schools, numerous middle schools, elementary schools. What we found is the most pragmatic deployment is not that flash cut the whole region. Every school has got different teachers, different superintendents, different students. And so they want to kind of get the operations and the flow of the students into the school. They issue school issued identification, and every child has to show it on the way to the door to make sure there isn't people who shouldn't be there. And so you have to get that whole process right. And so we found with schools, it's, let's get one school right, then the next, then it's progressive. Other schools, though, where maybe they have a total of four systems for a very small school district, they'll want to do it over one of those breaks. And then they'll do all the training and things over those breaks, and then the kids come back. But in terms of overall seasonality, is there a buying season? Everybody wants to buy in July while the kids are all, out of school.
Mm-hmm.
No, we're engaged in demos almost every week with a school, and they are working through, and they'd be happy to deploy in February, April, June, September. So there isn't really a seasonality where you're going to see buying just in 2 months.
Okay, yeah, no, that's good to hear. Obviously, or you know, fortunately and unfortunately, there's a lot of demand in schools.
Yeah, I
But
tell people, John, that we're doing well as a business. Unfortunately, due
yeah,
to the stable wealth.
yeah. One thing, this is kind of an odd question, but it was pointed out to me, and it did kind of stand out to me that a lot of your contracts tend to, at least in the U.S., be more concentrated on the eastern side of the U.S. than the western side. And I didn't get really the chance to really dig into your competition and see if it's just kind of an industry thing or whatnot. Is there anything to read into there, from any perspective, the concentration of contracts in the U.S.?
There's nothing to read into that other than I'd say we initially had stronger partners on the East Coast. We have a lot of very strong partners through the kind of central part of the U.S. Think that Chicago through Dallas through Houston kind of strip. And I think it comes down to the strength of the partners and how many are proactive and actually out, pushing out. I would have said a year ago, the majority of the schools we did tended to be in the Northeast. And a lot of it came down to the strength of the partners. I think it also, the West Coast is an interesting market, and it's kind of challenging to get fast decision making versus the East Coast, where we're seeing faster decision making and faster cycles on people wanting to move from trial to contract. So other than that, I don't think there's anything really unique about it or anything to read into it. It's really just maybe it's a little bit of cyclicality in terms of behaviors and attitudes, in the different regions.
We're just a little
I'm
bit more
not
laid back on the West Coast, huh?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But we're seeing some great business in California right now, both in schools. We're seeing the same thing up in sort of Seattle, Oregon area. Things in Vegas were hot and then cold and starting to reemerge again. So, I think it's sometimes it's due to the Rolodex the salesperson brings to the table. It's the partners who might be focused on certain vertical markets or have certain strengths. I definitely think that we saw faster adoption for the partners on the East Coast than we did the West Coast. But I'm pleased that we've got nice coverage everywhere.
Okay. Okay. Um, On the call for the last quarter for you guys' Q4 earnings call, one of the really bright spots that you mentioned that you hadn't talked about in a couple quarters is that your churn is still essentially zero. You had one customer, it was a grant situation, but you pretty much have a zero
Yeah.
churn, which I will say is extremely impressive for any industry, but especially something like yours where there's a lot of competition right now, pricing wars, stuff like that. One thing that does get a little bit confusing though is and I've seen investors send me pictures. It's been something that people have talked about for a little bit. Is every now and then you do see at different venues that have been announced as an Xtract One customer, you see them using a walkthrough metal detector or multiple walkthrough metal detectors or some other technology. Madison Square Garden comes to mind with their bag screening, and you've kind of addressed that already. But can you maybe just shed some light on that, give some context and some reassurance as to why this might happen?
Yeah, sure. So, like anything, let's talk about Madison Square Garden and perhaps talk about a couple of other venues as
Okay.
anything. Madison Square Garden is very, very unique, and they get an exception from the NHL and the NBA. They're one of the few venues that allows the broad group of population to bring in bags. Most venues will allow a diaper bag or a medical bag, but they won't allow someone to bring in a backpack with a laptop. They just refuse, or purses that are over a certain size. And you look at various venues and they actually have on the walls, icons or the badges actually the security guards have. They take the bag and they'll measure the bag up against their name tag.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's bigger than the name tag, it's not allowed to go in. And the name tags are specifically cut to a certain size. So there's a lot of processes that security folks are going through to refuse bags. Okay? Madison Square Garden is unique because the average person who say works on Wall Street or downtown isn't going to go all the way home to New Jersey, change, leave their bag, and come all the way back again. Or the family who's in town for the Christmas show, and they're going to go shopping all day for Christmas, and then they're going to go to the Rockettes to see the show, and they've got all their bags. So they've got exceptions that they have to allow. So they have quite a number of walk-through metal detectors as well as X-ray machines to allow the bags to go through. What they found when they were using our technology was people were getting through so fast, but those X-ray machines take time. So all of a sudden they have this crowd of 5, 10, 15 people all waiting for their bag to come through the X-ray machine. And it created a very complex environment. So if you go to MSG in the middle, they have the X-ray machines. They use the old walkthroughs to slow the crowd down so they're coming into the pace of the bag screeners, X-ray machines. And at the left and the right, the fast lanes and the VIP lanes, they're us. Similarly, Moody decided that one of their sets is where all the students come in for the basketball games, they were going to leave the old walk-through metal detectors. It was a policy that University of Texas decided that they wanted to stay with that for the rowdy students. Okay. All everyone else, normal guests, you and I, John, because you don't look like a student anymore, we would go through our systems. Other places like Acrisure was very interesting environment. Well, we started with a full deployment. What everyone quickly realized in Acrisure is the sand there in the desert is very, very flat and it gets into everything. And they had challenges with all the camera systems, all the Wi-Fi access points, all the point of sale terminals, even though the building was purpose built to deal with that kind of a harsh environment. Talking to the general manager, he said, like, I'm having to replace all technology every year. And so it's a very harsh environment. So they still have us at certain entrances, VIP entrances, but where the systems are going to sit outdoors all the time in the sand, we've all agreed that it's probably a better thing to go put in walk-through metal detectors, and I'm fine with that. Because I'd rather have our systems working excellently at the places they're meant to work and not sitting out there in a blowing sandstorm every second day where that means that there's going to be issues. While they're hardened for outdoor use, they're not hardened for life on Mars. Okay.
Sure.
And so, and that's what you really have in place like Acrisure. So, you do get these kinds of scenarios. Someone like, I think another good OVG venue, UBS, we do find these hybrid environments. And you might find some environments where they say, I've got an entrance which is 100 people at most coming through it. Maybe a walk-through metal detector has a better ROI value for me because I only need one security guard versus the entrance where I'm trying to stream 15,000 people fast.
Sure.
So
Sure.
there are hybrid environments, and like anything, there's a place for every technology. There's a place for metal detectors, there's a place for hand ones, there's a place for us.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I mean, if you're a venue and you're looking at the ROI, yeah, it's your bottom line. You're gonna focus on
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Last question here, because I know you got to go. One more point on the call that I thought was really interesting is smart gateway. You know, obviously everybody's kind of focused on one gateway. Smart gateway kind of is getting left behind by, especially a lot of newer investors to the stock. But smart gateway, you seemed very, very confident on the call, in my opinion, in the demand and how that was selling. Can you just kind of
Yeah.
elaborate on that a little bit and maybe talk about which specific customer segments are doing really well with that right now?
Yeah, so a couple of thoughts, John. Just give an example. I watch the numbers very closely in our sales. I watch every deal. You know, the lifeblood of our company is bookings, like any other tech company. And interesting enough, I was just doing a scrub of all the numbers for our Q2. And fascinating to me that about 60% of all the opportunities are smart gateway opportunities.
Hmm.
And there's no seasonality to it. It just happens to be certain things that have been worked on for a while. All those customers are now saying, I'm ready to buy. And so we're going to see a little bit more smart gateways probably in the next quarter. It doesn't mean the one gateway demand has gone away. In fact, the one gateway demand is, I love it. And I keep thinking about, okay, geez, that's more orders. We've got to find a way to serve and get the manufacturing moving faster and faster. If I could
That's
get
why you need
that
the money.
hamster if I could get the hamster spinning on the treadwheel or get 10 hamsters spinning on the wheel faster, I would. So there's certain markets where the smart gateway fits best. The one that is coming to mind most is healthcare. You have to catch the small little knives. And, I've been out myself personally, my staff's been out with dozens and dozens of healthcare organizations. And they talk a lot about, I just mentioned Manitoba a moment ago. Manitoba found more than 1,600 weapons between now and again, I can't recall if it was March or April. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And the majority of those, 80% of them are knives, if not more. And, we have a challenging society where, people are challenged by stress, by health related issues, by homelessness, by drug related issues. And for example, the homeless folks, um, they've got these makeshift knives that are made out of razor blades put in, vape pens and things like this. And those are the things that are unfortunately being used upon caregivers. And so we have to catch the knives in healthcare, and it's one of the things that's excelling and why we're doing so well with people like Manitoba, other provinces, and places here in the U.S. So, healthcare is a place where Smart Gateway is doing unbelievably well. In Europe, it's all Smart Gateway. In places like Singapore and Australia, it's all Smart Gateway because the knives is a problem. And, we see that quite extensively, kinds of things that were tested after Satbank Center. In manufacturing and distribution, we continue to see a strong, strong uptake on the smart gateway. It does very well at, for example, not alerting on steel toe boots like all the other solutions do.
Hmm.
And that's kind of one of those, you might have heard me talk, John, before. For each individual market segment, there's usually two, maybe one, maybe two, maybe three things that are the must-haves. In schools, don't alert on the laptops. Manufacturing distribution, don't alert on the steel toe boots. Everyone's got them. It's 100% alerting. Hospitals, you've got to catch the knives. And, we uniquely with the Smart Gateway and the One Gateway can address each of those unique market needs. So Smart Gateway is not going away. And in
Yeah.
fact, we're continuing to invest in it and further innovate on it.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Good to hear. Well, I'll let you go, but is there any last things you want to leave us with? Any tidbits for upcoming quarters?
We have always have your ups and downs. But right now, I feel really good about the business right now. I feel really excited about it. We've got a great team of people. We've got some great customers. Again, I gave that quick anecdote of we were doing a demo with a customer. They had something unique that was alerting. And within 2 hours, we turned on the AI algorithm and blew them away. And the interesting thing is there was a partner who set that up, very significant partner. And they quickly were telling everyone else about it. And I got a call from their SVP of this partner organization. global organization. And he said that was unbelievable. Our folks were ecstatic. So I really love where we're sitting as a company right now with the innovation that we're delivering. I really love the customers we're bringing in. They're much larger, the Fortune 500s, and there's a lot of really things that are making me very happy with the business, really.
Well, that's good to hear. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you got a busy schedule, but I really appreciate it, and I know the investors do. So have a great rest of your day, and I really appreciate you coming on the channel.
No worries. I'm glad we did, John. Thank you for waiting till after we formally close the deal.
Yeah, no problem.